welcome to my session. I hope everyone has had an amazing day today. My name is June Angelides, and I'm an early stage investor at Samos Investments. Aside from my day job, I'm also an entrepreneur like you, and I'm also an activist. I'm a big advocate for the rights of working mothers, promoting flexible working. And today I am going to be doing my best to demystify the investment landscape for you. A little bit about myself before we kick off. So I started off my career in technology and venture when I joined Silicon Valley back in 2011. That was my first foray into the world of startups and tech and investing. And prior to that, I knew nothing about it. But what it did do for me was really affirm my love for technology. I think I'd always, at the back of my mind, being a massive advocate for people who are changing the world in some shape or form, people who can make ideas come to life. And I realized that being in a position where you can fund these businesses is pretty powerful, but also, making that right decision about who should get funded, what businesses can actually change the way we live and improve our lives is a pretty fantastic position to be in, and I feel very grateful to do the job that I do. So I'm sure a lot of you have got businesses, have thought at some point, when do I start thinking about raising external capital? How much should I be raising? Who should I get money from? And when is the right time to bring that money into the business? So this is like a little overview of the different types of capital that we often see startups looking at, especially on the early side. So first up is friends and family. So this one I know is a tricky one for some people. I know I don't have family that I can go to and be like, can you give me 20,000? It varies. And, I think the way to think about this is, end of the day, it's capital at risk. Who do you feel comfortable going to and who believes in that idea from the get-go? So I know some founders have the privilege of having family that they can tap into. And it's a great place if you've got an MVP and you do have that group of people who love you and are willing to put their capital at risk for you. Another group you might have heard about is angels. Angel investing is becoming, quite the norm. And we're seeing more and more that startups are raising from super angels who are funding the entire round. So the tickets can vary from anything from £1,000 up to, a couple $100,000. But what I would say about angel investing is, the big question is, where do you find these angels? There's a few angel groups out there, especially specifically for female founders. There's groups like Angel Academ. Some of you may have heard of Alma Angels. And there's also, groups like Cedars, which in crowdfunding essentially gives you access to these pools of capital. And I think it's a case, you would approach them the same way you would if you were going into a bank or if you were going to a venture capital. You would still need to prepare in the same fashion, have your idea, have your business plan. Doesn't need to be too in-depth at the early stages, because I think, essentially it's super early days and no one's expecting you to come with like a master, 100-page document, but giving them an idea of what you're going to do with that capital. They in turn will do due diligence on that. And then also loans. I have a sort of a love-hate relationship with loans, but it does depend on the stage of your business. I would say I would not recommend loans in the early days. I don't believe, the outgoing should be more than what's coming in. So when you're in the very infant stages of your business, I would say if you can, stay away from loans. Perhaps if you have some sort of good cash flow in the early days and you just need it as a buffer, maybe for working capital, there are some instances where it's okay. But again, I would say be a bit cautious about when you add any leverage into your business. And venture capital, this is my land. So the world of VC, I would say venture capital is really applicable when you're looking to supercharge your business. And I say this, this can still be in the early stages. You can still get venture capital, but it really depends on the type of business that you are starting. We're talking businesses that are going to be almost global from day one, businesses that need a ton of capital to get going. Very often we're looking at technology businesses that from the get-go have that scale that, you need to be hiring engineering teams. You need to push a lot of marketing spend to really get it going. So I think really thinking about what point your business is super important. So this is the elephant in the room, the startup idea. I know this is controversial, but not every business should get funded. And I say this because, it takes time to sort of refine an idea. It takes time to know for sure that there is product market fit. I mean, I have a zillion ideas a day, but not all of them should get money. And I say this, hand on heart. I know, I'm an investor myself, and it doesn't mean I have always the most brilliant ideas, although I'd love to think so. So I would say, really think about, is this business, does it have a large enough market? Is there a real customer base for your product? How big can it be? Does it really have legs to stand on? Have you really thought it through? Something should not be funded. So really having a really good conversation with yourself around that before approaching anyone for capital is super important. So what do investors really want to know when you walk in the room? They first of all want to make sure that you've done your homework, that you have a clear plan as to how you're going to go from this idea to execution. And they, we're trying to work out, why now? Like, why is this the time to start your business? Is it because we're seeing a lot of COVID businesses, yeah? A lot of us that are at home, some of our patterns have changed. Perhaps these are patterns that are going to last for quite a long period of time. But really thinking about that before you walk into the room, because we're going to ask you, is this something that you really expect to be a long-lasting behavior? And why do you believe that you're the best person to make this a reality? And this is where I always talk about those lived experiences. If you perhaps have, studied something, maybe you did a thesis on a particular subject, and you come in and you're like, well, I've spent day in, day out really analyzing it, and 100%, I know this market inside out. I've spoken to every single potential customer. I'm super passionate. And, we really do look for these signals when you walk into the room. But we're trying to assess passion. We're trying to understand, is this something that you're going to do for 1 month and be like, oh, I can't do this anymore? Because it's going to get hard. It's not always straightforward to acquire customers. It's not always straightforward to build out that team. But we want to figure out, have you got that tenacity to sort of stand the test of time? Will you sort of fight to get the best talent in your business? Are people going to be attracted to working with you because they are so inspired by your mission that they want to get on board? They're happy to drop their jobs at McKinsey and they're happy to jump ship and join you. So these are the things we're looking at. And then also in terms of the homework, have you really thought about the size of the market? Why is this something that needs to be tackled? And who's done it? What does the landscape look like? Because there's always competition. And I think if you come into an investor and say there's no competition, they're going to be like, are you sure? There's always some competition in some shape or form, whether it's through historic ways of doing things. There's something that has worked, and you're going to be coming in competing around that. And also just your ability to sell, your ability to get people on board. If you're selling to businesses, how do you build those stakeholder relationships? Drawing in from your past experiences, maybe in corporate life, where you've sort of handled a situation and got people on board. And I think if you find ways to demonstrate that, that's going to be key. Obviously, your strategy is going to be something we're looking at. What is going to give you the edge, and how are you going to make this work despite current market conditions? What unique insights into the market do you have, and that you feel will add real value? So how do you really secure the bag? I think when you're thinking about taking any form of capital, whether it's friends and family, whether it's angels or venture capital, remember that this is going to be a long-term relationship. So I really encourage any founder I meet to think about what their ideal investor looks like, bearing in mind you're going to be spending a lot of time with the investor. Think of it like dating. we're going to be catching up on WhatsApp. We're going to be doing to's and fro's over email, just checking in on each other. Do you really want to hang out with me, like on a Friday, talking about the business? Just really think about, what kind of value they add besides money. They talk about smart money, and it's true, because at the end of the day, if someone were to come to me and say, well, I want money from you, I'm going to think, okay, have you looked at our portfolio? Have you looked at the types of companies we've invested in? And what about that sort of landscape and our breadth of experiences do you feel would be valuable to you and your business? So we've done a lot of direct to consumer, companies like Bloom and Wild and Papier and Lick. And I would expect that, direct to consumer company would come to us and say, well, we've seen you've had success sort of in this space, and we feel that you could perhaps help us as we scale, as we look to go public. So come in, having done the research, feel free to reach out to companies within the portfolios of the investors that you're interested in. Get a take on what they like to work with. I think not enough people talk about when things don't go well. Those situations where, the board gets involved. How do they react when you don't meet your targets, you don't hit your plan? What sort of experiences have people had with investors in those times? Those are the telling moments. And I think people need to really dig into that ahead of time. And access. I think access is one that is so debated. Warm intros are a bit of a nightmare. And I think they cut out a lot of people from accessing top tier investors. Do people really respond to cold emails? It's a challenge the industry is working through, and I think there's a lot still to be done. I believe it's important that access is democratized, and you can reach a partner straight away. You don't have to sort of hustle your way through, and maybe your email doesn't get looked at. But I think these days, and I think thanks to COVID, the landscape has changed a little bit, and you can reach investors on Twitter. I would say, if you're a podcaster, you love your podcast, watch a podcast, listen to a podcast, read the Medium post, get a sense of what the investor is like. I feel like there's so much information out there that allows you to get a sense of their preferences, how they like to be approached. Some of them have DMs open. So I think just figure out the right way. Some have Insta. My Insta DMs are open, so feel free to message me. But I would say get to know them, get a feel for what they might be like to work with, and try and get to know the investor perhaps a couple of months before you actually want to start raising. That gives you the edge, because you sort of build that rapport, that trust, and they sort of start tracking you. So don't leave it to the last minute. And the deck really does matter. I would say really spend time making sure that deck really communicates who you are, shows a bit of personality. Some people like to use a video. I would say if there's a way to include some sort of demo video, but try and use it as an opportunity to give a very good first impression, because often that's the first thing they see before having a conversation with you. So you really want to find a way to impress. Spend time on the graphics. There is nothing worse than an awful looking deck. So, it's worth it. Try Canva. Canva's amazing. But practice, so that when you come into the room, you're ready. I think it's so important now more than ever, especially for the female founders in the room, that you have that confidence and realize that you absolutely deserve to be sitting there in front of the investor. Don't be intimidated. It should never be an intimidating process. And if it is, maybe they're not the investor for you. I don't believe in, making anyone feel scared when they walk into the room to chat to me. I'm just a normal person. So come in knowing that you have this great idea. You spent the time building a plan. You know why you want to start your business. You know why you want capital. So really own it. Own your numbers. I think it's important to know how much you need to run your business, how many months, how many years the money that you're asking for is going to give you in terms of breathing room, so that you can get on with building your business. That's the reason you want to raise capital. So you can be heads down, building and getting a product that's ready for market. And I think, those if you sort of follow that path, I think knowing fully well that your business absolutely deserves to be out in the world and you're the best person to build it. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a flavor, and I'd love to get your questions now. Thank you. Hi, Vanessa.
Hi, June. Thank you very much for your presentation. Those were some great tips. We're now going to get some questions in. Okay, so CK Media, what are the key things I need to include in a business plan?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main things we would expect to see in a deck are obviously information about the team. I would say, especially in the early days, we want to understand who are the key people that will be building this business. We want to understand why your backgrounds are valid to making this the most successful business product or products ever. Your numbers, the numbers are super important. We want to get a sense of maybe if you have some traction already, that's not always required, especially on the early side. But if you have some financial actuals that you can share, that's great. We want to see your projections. We want to understand what are the costs that you're going to incur, what are your margins going to look like, how you're going to acquire your customers. We want to see an understanding of the market. What does the competition look like? And what is going to be your unique edge over the competition? You know, for me, those are the main things that I'm looking for. If you're able to show me a demo of the product, maybe some screenshots, just to really visualize what it is you're trying to build, that's always super helpful. But I think, you know, it's the money, the team, you know, if you've got some traction already, some sense of, you know, your progress to date, some, you know, sense of your plan over the next couple of years in terms of product build, that's always super helpful as well.
Sounds great. Thank you. I have another question from Jennifer. Has there ever been something in your career that you wished you invested in but didn't?
Yes, I wish I had a coach sooner, 100%. I cannot overemphasize the value of having a coach, just in really focusing me, because I'm one of those people who has a zillion ideas a day, and it's really hard to keep track of sort of where I want to go and what I want to do. So having someone center me, just made my personality, keeping me accountable, has been really, really beneficial. In the last year, I just have seen so much growth by working with my coach, and I highly recommend everyone thinks about getting a coach or a mentor. I just didn't understand the value much sooner, and it's been life-changing. So if you have that opportunity, please do so.
Awesome. Okay, so we have a question from Faith Gundani. Has COVID-19 made it more difficult to acquire investment?
Do you know what? I feel like it's democratized it a bit more. I don't think so. I think investors have been way more accessible. I think I've never seen as many office hours as over the last year. So you've got a real opportunity recently to get in front of investors, which I feel is the first hurdle, because you want to get seen, you want to be able to tell them your ideas, and I think that's really happened. We're seeing more accelerators playing an active role in opening up the gateway. There's been a lot of conversation about sort of banning warm interest and people just making themselves way more accessible. There's a lot of capital, despite the fears at the beginning of the pandemic. We've seen some really large funds being raised. We've seen new funds come into the market. So no, I don't think it's been harder. I think it's been top of mind for a lot of funds to make sure the momentum keeps going. And for now, at least with market conditions, I can't see that changing.
Awesome. Thank you so much for everybody that sent through some questions. And June, you've been amazing with your presentation and just really giving us that guidance that we need. We are now going to wrap up day 3 of the summit. It's been an amazing day with some amazing sessions. And we'd love to say thank you to everybody that has been tuned in. We go again tomorrow for day 4. and we look forward to seeing you all there. Thank you to everybody that has taken part and contributed, and thank you once again, June. I hope you all have a lovely evening. Take care.